Am I going to run out of water? It depends on where you live. Hi, my name is Drew Gronewold. I'm a hydrologist here at the University of Michigan's School for Environment and Sustainability. I also have adjunct appointments in the Department of Earth and Environmental Sciences, as well as Environmental Engineering. All right, first question. Where do I get my water from? So where people in the United States get their water depends a lot on which watershed or basin you live in. So there are large river basins across the entire country. Here in the Great Lakes, for example, most of the water that we get comes from the Great Lakes. We're within that basin, that's where we draw our water from. But there are other large basins, for example, the Rio Grande River Basin or the Colorado River Basin or the Columbia River Basin. So a lot of where people get their water from depends on what large basin you live in. Next question. Am I going to run out of water? It depends on where you live. There is a huge gradient in this country and around the world between areas of water scarcity and water abundance. If you live in Michigan or if you live in the Great Lakes region, you're in an area of essentially water abundance. But if you live in the arid Southwest or in parts of California, you're not only in an area where surface water supplies are running out, there are areas of California in the arid Southwest where groundwater is running out as well. There's another angle on this too, though, which is that in the Great Lakes, even though we think we're in an area of water abundance, there are actually areas of the Great Lakes where the water quality is so bad that you might actually be running out of water. Not necessarily running out of the amount of water, but running out of the amount of clean water that you can drink and use. And this is a major problem as well. Why is the Colorado River always in the news? The Colorado River has increasingly been in the news because it is being depleted. The Colorado River has a long history that involves basically what we call allocation. In other words, a long time ago, people saw the Colorado River as a resource for drinking water, for agriculture, for developing large cities. And there was, in general, a decision made among many of the states along the Colorado to figure out how they could allocate or use up all of that water. The challenge is that the way that they allocated all the water was based on a time period where water was abundant. And now that we're in a period of climate change and drought, the river can no longer sustain all of those allocated uses. So the Colorado River is in the news a lot right now because very serious legal conversations going on about reestablishing the water allocations for all of the states along the Colorado River. It's a really important topic. What is a drought? In short, a drought means running out of water or a shortage of water. But what's kind of interesting is in hydrology, or people who study water a lot, we actually think about two different types of drought that are really important. One is called meteorological drought, which is when you basically have a shortage of rainfall. Hydrological drought has more to do with things like storage in groundwater and river flows and streams. So either a shortage in long-term rainfall or a depletion of groundwater, rivers, and streams can both constitute drought, but there are very different ways of managing those two different types of drought. But again, in general, drought means you're running out of water, or you've just been in a long period where you haven't had a steady supply of water, either through rivers and streams or through rainfall and snow. How will climate change impact the Great Lakes? Scientists have been trying to answer this question for about the last 30 years, and we're going to continue working on it for the next 30 years. However, in general, a couple things that are impacting the Great Lakes from a climate change perspective. Most important is that on average, it's getting warmer across the Great Lakes. Now, this is true for a lot of areas, but the impacts of that, at least in terms of the hydrology of the Great Lakes, we see as twofold. One is that the atmosphere and the air around the Great Lakes gets warmer, the air can hold more moisture. So that means there's actually the capacity for more moisture to be brought into the Great Lakes in these big atmospheric, you might have heard the term atmospheric rivers. Well, there are atmospheric rivers that pass over the Great Lakes as well, and because they're warmer, they can carry more water. So in some ways, people think of the future of the Great Lakes under climate change as being more tropical, that we'll get more water. But because we have these vast open water surfaces in the Great Lakes, as the lakes warm, they're likely to evaporate more. So we have two sort of competing impacts of climate change. One, where more rain or precipitation can be brought to the Great Lakes, making them wetter, but also we can have more evaporation and more evapotranspiration, leading to more water loss. So kind of an interesting combination of impacts from climate change.